Okay, today we are estimating square roots. Okay, when we are estimating square roots, I would recommend that you list out some of the perfect square roots that you know. And so I've done that here on the side, some of the ones that we'll be using today. The square root of 1 is 1 because 1 squared is 1. 2 squared is 4, so the square root of 4 is 2. Okay, square root of 9 is 3, square root of 16 is 4, square root of 25 is 5, and so on. Okay, and then I did the same thing for cube roots because we'll be estimating a couple of those at least to the nearest integer today. So the cube root of 1 is 1. 2 cubed is 8, so the cube root of 8 is 2. Cube root of 27 is 3. Cube root of 64 is 4. Okay, and so on. All right, so these first ones, we're just going to estimate to the nearest integer. So the square root of 14 is going to fall between the square root of 9 and the square root of 16. Okay, which means it's between the number 3 and 4 on our number line. And the square root of 14 is going to be closer to the square root of 16, which means it's going to be closer to the number 4. So it's approximately 4 if we're rounding to the nearest integer. Okay. The square root of 219 goes a little bit higher. So you can see over here I've listed the square root of 196 is 14 and the square root of 225 is 15. And square root of 219 would fall between those two. And square root of 219 is going to be closer to 225. So it's going to be approximately 15. Okay. Again, same thing with your cube roots. Cube root of 53 is going to fall between cube root of 27 and cube root of 64, which means it's between 3 and 4. And 53 is closer to 64 than 27, so it's going to be, again, closer to 4. Okay? And the cube root of 221 falls between the cube root of 216 and the cube root of 343, which is between 6 and 7. And 221 is closer to 216 than 343, so that is going to be approximately 6. Okay? Now down here, we're going to talk about estimating to further out decimals, okay, estimating to the tenths, hundredths place. And we are going to use fractions to help us do that, okay? And so the first thing we're going to do is still find what two numbers each of these falls between. And the square root of 14, we said, falls between 3 and 4 on our number line. So we're going to have the number 3 and the number 4, which is the square root of 9 and the square root of 16. And for this first one, I'm going to list out all of my square roots that are between the square root of 9 and 16. So square root of 10, square root of 11, square root of 12, square root of 13, 14, 15, and then we get to 16. And you can see here that we have 7 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 spaces between, okay? That is the number that would be our denominator, okay? It's the number that makes up the whole. In this case, it's 7, okay? And again, this number falls between 3 and 4, so 3 is going to be that whole number. So the square root of 14 is 3 and then something out of 7. And we can see here it's located right there on my number line. So it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts out of my 7 whole to get to 4. So it's 3 and 5/7. Okay, then we can turn that into a decimal in order to estimate it closer. And 5/7 is 0.7142857142885. Okay, and it repeats, but we are just going to estimate it to the nearest hundredths place first. So we have 3 again as our whole number, and then 7, 1, because that 4 is going to tell that 1 to stay the same. And if we go to the nearest tenth, we're going to have 3.7. Okay. All right. Now let's take a look at a number that's a little bit bigger. Okay. Now this time, I want you to recognize also my denominator I can get by doing 16 minus 9 gives me that 7. And 14 minus 9 gives me my numerator. So I'm going to use that information to help me with some of these larger numbers here. So the square root of 91 falls between 9 and 10 on my number line. Okay, square root of 100 is 10, square root of 81 is 9. Okay, and it's going to be about here, okay, on my number line, okay? And again, approximately it's between 9 and 10, so it's going to be 9 is my whole number. And then my denominator is going to be the number of spaces between 81 and 100, which we can get by doing 100 minus 81, okay? And that is 19. So there are 19 spaces between there. And 91 is partially between, so the part that it is between is 10 because I get 91 minus 81 equals 10, okay? And it is 10 out of 19 spaces, okay? And again, we'll estimate with our decimals. 10 out of 19 is 9.526. That 6 going to tell that 2 to round up, so 9.53, or if you're rounding to the nearest tenth, it would be 9.5. Okay? All right, we'll do one more example together. A little bit bigger of a number here. So square root of 215 falls between 14 and 15 on my number line because this 14 squared is 196, so we get the square root of 196. 15 squared is 225, okay, and square root of 215 is in between, okay? And square root of 215, so we know our whole number is going to be 14 here. All right, our denominator we're going to get by doing 225 minus 196, and that gives me 29. Okay, and then my numerator I'm going to get by doing 215 minus 196, and that is going to be 19. So 19/29. So I get 14. It is approximately equal to 14,655, which again, if we round to the nearest hundredth, would be 14.66 because that 5 tells that 5 to round up. And then the 6 tells, or the 5 tells the 6 to round up to 7. So we're going to do 14.7 to the nearest tenth.